All right, click the links to join the channel, become a member here or over on Subscribestar. So just to kind of set the stage here, this is a Valkyrie, one of the horse riders, the long braided hair chicks, they have horns and cornucopias and whatnot to usher the soldiers into Valhalla. And she's in that Norse religion of for the Scandinavian people. She's Valhalla. This is where we are now. You're not a bigot istophobe, are you? Well, I wasn't a few years ago. If this is the line you draw to say, oh yeah, can European things be for European people? That's the line to say that, oh, well, you're a bigot. If you say, well, okay, is the reverse true? Are you going to tell an African pantheon story in the House of the Gods, and you're gonna have a Frenchman who's in the African pantheon? Oh, don't be ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, okay, but what exactly are you doing? Oh, you're again. Yikes, my guy, touch some grass. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of grass being touched. I'm touching grass. It doesn't. Oh, this is the ABC. It's good to know they have Disney has a checklist. So Disney is a Marvel Studios casting director confirms studio will continue to embrace their representation and diversity agenda that is slowly deleting the MCU. That is, Ms. Marvel is a comic book that did not sell well. So that means whenever a comic book doesn't sell well, they put it in the movie universe and they go, oh, it's a widely acclaimed comic or widely well spelled, good selling comic. You're like, what are you talking about? No, none of this makes sense. Riri Williams, that kept the Iron Man clone. It's like people love her, so it went like 12, 13 issues. Yeah, that's right. That's a badly selling comic. Iron Man might be a popularly selling IP, but none of these secondary characters. These might even be tertiary characters. So Disney is a globalist propaganda company because they're run by demons. Good stories are nationalist, blood, tribal stories. A good story, a deep connected story, is Lord of the Rings. Even as little kids, you knew the difference between a fluffy globalist story that was Elf Quest. You knew that was propaganda. When they get to the part where there's the dark and the fair elves and they're meeting, and then the author's just doing her little self-insert to push some sort of, I don't know, Pollyanna kumbaya. Hey, we're all one thing. Except, I mean, you juxtapose these light and dark elves together, and they literally look different. You say, no, we're all actually the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe in your bizarro cat lady universe. I mean, I understand you're writing an IP to try to license it and try to make money off it. And I'm sure ElfQuest did okay, but it's like, even as a kid, you look at that and something is off about it. Even you kind of accept it, but it's like it doesn't stay with you. Where Lord of the Rings is a much deeper story. Even though Lord of the Rings is it's in its own way, it's just a fluffy fantasy adventure story, but it's one that has roots. Where something like ElfQuest is just plastic. It's just plastic F doll. It's propaganda. It's telling the writer's story. It's not telling the story of the tribe story with a capital S. So the difference is, one story is organic. Yeah, so Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Where's the diversity in Black? Where are the Chinese and the Europeans in Wakanda? You seem to have, there's actually plenty of Eurasians, Chinese and Europeans in Africa right now. Why aren't they allowed in Wakanda? It's a good question, bigot. So I think all these questions are so obvious, and then like nobody in the mainstream ever asks them because they don't want to get fired. So the difference is organic stories and natural stories, tribal stories. It's the dexterous, the right hand path. The other is sinister, the left hand path, Bolshevism. It's rot and corruption, filth and pestilence. What was that Constantine movie where there was a anthropomorphic figure and it was made up of like scorpions and cockroaches and centipedes and millipedes? It's the anthropomorphic personification of filth and evil and it's just, God, it was like, it's snakes and just venomous serpents covered in centipedes and just evil wrapped up in human form. It's like, yeah, that's Disney. That's the face of Disney. Disney is not the Disney you remember of the 80s and the 90s. It's also why Disney and Amazon, and when I say Disney, it's Disney, Amazon, Warner Brothers, whatever. They're all exactly the same. Cartoon Network, and they're all they're all on board the same agenda. It's why Disney and Amazon buy stories that already have a connection to people because the fan base is built in. Then they just bait and switch. Though I will say that people are kind of awakening to this faster and faster because hey, we're using Twitter and Gab and Telegram and stuff. You're able to make a YouTube video that reaches a couple hundred people, and other people make videos spread out to tens of thousands. You get the idea. Like, they know who the Phantom Menace is. Gary Neurotic is probably the biggest name. Like, he is probably the biggest target, and Yellow Flash is up there too, of people who are able to change a narrative by spreading this message to tens of thousands of people and then to hundreds of thousands of people. And it's not just it's a selective audience of people who are likely to spend or not spend money. It's not just a bunch of random people who aren't into movies. It's people who are following along for pop culture. So the future of Disney and Hollywood is these globalist stories. If you write some fantasy stories set in European mythology, or like The Witcher, right, and they want to do a show based on it, that is it. It's based on it. It's not the story. It's updated for the modern audience. Whenever you hear that phrase, that means we're going to subvert it and corrupt it. So they won't tell this little European village story, some cozy little pub with a bunch of, like the original Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. They're going to swap out the European characters that make this story special. You cannot replace people. Humans are not fungible. Globalists think humans are cogs in the machine, where you can swap out an African for an Irishman and there's no difference in the story whatsoever. It's like, we look at that and go, this is just absurd. So Disney literally won't tell a European story for European people. Those days are gone. They will insert non-Europeans into these stories to try to brainwash kids into thinking that things were always this way. What are you talking about? There were always African queens leading Vikings into battle. Yikes, my guy. Be better. Touch grass. Put your finger inside a woman, my guy. Everything comes down to sex for soy boys and cat ladies. It's like that's their whole value is in sex. They have an inclusion checklist, except they don't include the European tribes as diverse. There isn't a checklist for Irish or German. It's all just Europe. So if they have a story to tell set in Poland, it has to have African and Latin people in it, even if it's set 500 years ago. They're telling you they are fine erasing European people, but if they tell an African or a South American story, they're not going to include European people in those stories. Shaka Zulu is not going to be German or Chinese or the Aztec. Let's tell the story of the Aztecs, but let's make them Frenchmen. It doesn't really have verisimilitude. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same verisimilitude of having Africans in Valhalla. Explain that one to me. Most of those people did not know Africa even existed. Why do they do this? Shaka Zulu being German? Yeah, Hollywood might do that. Because they hate European people. They don't value them. And the thing is, if you told me I'd be speaking like this like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have got it. The in-group preferences I have developed and millions of other people like me have developed has been insane. If you don't advocate for your own tribe to advance your own interests, to see your stories told, then you're just going to get what you get now. It's like just absolutely erase. Like, you're literally erasing European people from the European stories that they wrote about Europe. Literally, Englishmen writing stories. You're erasing him from his own stories. Or if he was very deeply influenced by Catholicism, you're erasing that aspect of the story. The European aspect, the nationalism, and the Christianity aspect, you're just wiping that away. It's literally just name recognition, bait and switch. It seems that should be more deeply disturbing to people. My point is, you have to value your tribe and become very open about that, even if it's like something that's somewhat new to people, to say, oh yeah, we have to see ourselves as a tribe and advance our own in-group preferences to see our stories told, even if we have to tell them ourselves. The best way to do is like, no, we're not going to make $200 million movies, but we don't have to pay them their $200 million movies. We don't have to support them at all, especially nowadays in the age of VPNs and external hard drives. They don't value you. They value all other groups, sort of, because mostly they treat them as tools to push this humiliation ritual to erase Tribe Europa. They put an African woman in Valhalla. Keep in mind, that is an active religion, the Norse, the Scandinavian. That's an active religion still today. And actually, I think it's a growing religion because Satire is growing. There's a couple of Satire videos on YouTube where they try to portray them in this bad light because it's some kind of Northern European religion, and you have to be Northern European to belong. And they try to portray them as some kind of it's like, but there are tens of thousands of African religions where you have to be of that tribe to belong. It's like this is a northern Europe. Like if they didn't have straw man, you can go watch those videos on YouTube and read the comment section. It's just a blast to read the straw man arguments. Like this church is evil. These Christians. It's like they're not Christians and it's not a church. Though the Vice article called it a church. It's like it's church has a meaning. Everything like there's churches, synagogues, and what do they call the what do they call it? Mosques. They all those things all have meanings, but it's like it's a Vice article. It's like you know what Vice is all about. Anyway, Hollywood has no issue desecrating a European religion, whether it's the Norse Scandinavian religions or even the European interpretation of Christianity. So telling a story with a checklist isn't a story. That's literally propaganda. I cannot imagine how future generations are going to look back at this period of bizarre peak Weimar cringe, assuming that the propaganda doesn't work. I mean, you know, history is written by the victor, and the Bolsheviks are the ones who are mostly telling the big budget stories. This is from the Eternals, which you can find online. If you watch it, you probably saw a few minutes of it. The opening scene is just CGI on top of CGI with a bunch of there's like some 300-pound guy who's a space god, and then there's a girl with a disability who's a space god, and it's like a United Colors of Bennington checklist. So our side is not making $200 million films. The white pill is that across the board, all the mainstream media is losing influence. TV, streaming, movies, news, comics, because the alt community, us, are replacing its market share. We are thousands of these tiny little fish, but we're growing, and the Hollywood shark is dying. One of their examples is The Eternals, a movie that bears no relationship to Jack Kirby's story, and one that lost money because it looks like a random LA casting call. You just cast a net down to Melrose and grab up whoever's out walking around at the beach or something. In the comic, the characters are blonde-haired and blue-eyed. In the movies, I don't even know where they're all from. They're just like checklist. That's all it is a checklist. And they make sure the BLT checklist is included also, where they have a kid involved in that matrix. The thing is, they're not anything. They're not a tribe. They have no shared history, no future, no connection. They're just a Hollywood anti-white fantasy. At one time, I would have sought middle ground. I would be like, okay, listen, diversity is fine. Just use already established characters within the Marvel DC universes. Don't erase European people to tell the story. It seems like you hate European people. You're anti-white. But then I learned that these people, that's what they are. Yes, they do hate you. Like with an incandescent genocidal rage, they want to see you removed across from this mortal coil also. But it's like they're telling you how they feel using these movies are a window into their soul. They're telling you how they feel about you. You can read between the lines on that. These people are not dealing in good faith and fair dealing. They want to erase us while simultaneously using us for the bait and switch. They're demon people. There's no way that you can continue to support Disney unless you support their globalist agenda. And if you're listening, oh yeah, there she is in Valhalla. If you're listening to this, you're probably very much not a globalist. Anyway, join us over at Subscribestar, or I will see you guys all next episode.